for the Dukescript, put Java into JavaScript. Right. And with us we have Anton Epple. Epple. Sorry.
Perfect. Okay, you should be able to hear me better now. Okay, so I'm really enjoying it here. It's having a great time. The weather is just the same as in Germany, so I feel really right at home. So I'm from Munich, and I have a little company where we do Dukescript, Dukescript support and development. And today I'd like to show you how you can get Java into JavaScript. Because I think it was in around 1995, when JavaScript was released, they built on the hype of the new cool language Java. They liked Java because with Java you could create dynamic parts in websites with applets and stuff like that. They thought ECMAScript is probably not a really nice name, so let's jump on this train and let's call our language JavaScript. But it's actually not Java, as we all know, and unfortunately not. But there are ways to get Java into JavaScript. So right now we have a big problem, and that problem is that there are a lot of devices that are really interesting to us developers. But there is the need to create native code to really write apps for them, typically. And you don't want to have like 3 code bases that you need to synchronize and maintain. So there is one way to get on all these devices, because all of these devices run JavaScript. But the problem with JavaScript is it was designed for basically manipulating DOMs in a website. That is the basic use of JavaScript for adding new elements in a website, stuff like that. And it was never intended to be used for application development, for real application development. And it's really good at what it is designed for animating stuff in a website, but it's not good for creating real applications, real life. It's not good for writing business code, basically. So, like as a friend of mine, Soran Shevarat, has put it, JavaScript is just a bunch of letters in a bag to a serious developer. And I might add, sometimes I want a baseball bat to hit this bag and bring it into shape. The problem really is that you don't have static typing, so the tooling is really not so good. And you have to write tons of unit tests. And you can do anything. So you have to have very, very strict rules, and you have all your developers need to follow these rules if you want to have really nice, if you want to write applications in JavaScript. And as far as I know, a lot of most companies where there are like 10, 12 developers in a smaller project run into serious problems when they use that for application development. Yeah, we've got a nice language that has static typing, that has the greatest tooling, the best IDEs. But the problem with that is that it's not really supported on all of these devices. At least it's not officially, Java is not officially supported by Oracle. So they don't provide a Java for these devices here. But there are other ways of doing that, and we've got some guys who know how to bring Java to this platform. And we've got also something like a Java virtual machine on here, because it's not really a Java virtual machine. Oracle would probably tell you otherwise. Google has a different opinion on this, but basically, you can somehow run Java code. But the problem is you don't have a unified UI toolkit on these machines. And that's why we created Dukescript, because we said we want to run Java and on these machines and create a unified UI toolkit that can run on all devices on desktop, that can run on Android phones, that can run on, oh, somebody's pinging me here, and that can run on an iPad or an iPhone. And for this, I had another quote, like Stephen Chin said, Dukescript is the lightweight JavaFX I always dreamed of. It's really lightweight, and I'll come to it in a minute, why it's so lightweight. But first, I would like to show you a demo, and first prove that it's actually true that Dukescript applications are running on here. So I'll start with this page here. This is where the Fair Minesweeper game is hosted. Fair Minesweeper, you all know Minesweeper, right? And when you played Minesweeper, in the beginning, you always start the same way. You start clicking randomly and trying to make a really, really big field appear on the screen. But this is basically random. This is not a fair game should prevent that. And the Minesweeper game here that we have here prevents that. And this game is available for all the platforms. You can get it in the Android Play Store. You can get it on in the App Store for iOS. You can run it in a browser, and you can also download it even as a NetBeans module and play it inside NetBeans. So it really runs everywhere. So I'll first show you the game here. So it's running in a browser right now. Now I'll show you the same game here. I hope you can see, at least I hope you believe me that it's actually running here. And I also have the same game on here, at least somewhere. And it's just the same game. I mean, the design skills are probably not so good, but this is a demo application, and we wanted to show that you can really get these applications through all the tests, so you can really deploy them on Android phones, and you can really sell them via the app stores. So everything is fine with that. Okay. So how does it work? So what is happening actually under the hood? I said it's a lightweight system, and the lightweight is really, we really wanted to make it very, very simple to port this to different platforms. Because we knew that all of these platforms have HTML rendering components. The iPhone can render HTML, and obviously Android can do that very, very well. So this is the one component that we need. And the other component is a JVM. So if you have these two components, then we can create the Dukescript layer that glues these two together, and we will support your platform. So, for example, so this is how it works. The JVM executes the Java business logic that is written with our Java APIs. And the HTML5 component renders basically an HTML page that is somehow bound due to the Dukescript APIs to this model, to the business model that is running in Java. Okay? So on the desktop, we are using the web view component from JavaFX to render the result. And we use the hotspot virtual machine, just regular Java. So the JVM starts our application, we launch a web view, and in this web view we render the HTML page basically that defines the UI. If we're on Android, we use Android WebKit WebView, and it runs on Dalvik. And Dukescript again glues those two together. So we have just a regular native app, Android app, that runs in Dalvik, and that just renders its result using this HTML renderer component. And on iOS, we have, thanks to Niklas, the RoboVM virtual machine. And it's just the same. It uses, basically, if it runs very well on Android, it will also run very well on iOS, because it uses basically the same runtime libraries, at least at the moment. You're about to change that. I heard that you're maybe moving to OpenJDK or something like that. Yeah, sometime. But right now, it's just like using the same runtime libraries that the Android version is using, so everything is fine. If it runs here, it definitely will run here as well. And again, Dukescript is just a small layer that glues the UI web view component from iOS together with the data model that is written in Java. So what we need is really just a very thin layer. So other than with the JavaFX effort, there's a lot of things going on to allow the rendering pipeline to run and stuff like that. So it's much more effort that you need to take to port this to a mobile platform. We have a much thinner layer that we need to support here. Yeah, and we can even run in the browser, and so we don't need a Java plugin or something like that, because we have a Java virtual machine that can run in the browser, and it's called back to browser, and can actually execute bytecode in the browser and run your business logic really in Java in the browser. This is the most experimental part, though. So we are mainly targeting these platforms here. These are the main targets for our applications. If you want to support running your application in the browser, then you have to accept some limitations. So we by far do not support the whole Java API in the browser, but only very, very core components of it. But for most stuff, for most simple stuff, it should work fine. So this is a question that I get a lot after this introduction. So it's like JSF. So you have a server that runs a JVM, and you somehow have an HTML page that is rendered on your client. Because this is a concept that is very familiar. But this is really not like it's like this works. It's really everything is running on the client. So the JVM is really on here. This thing is really running in Dalvik. We do not need a server component. And the same here. RoboVM is running here on the iPad. We do not need a server component. Everything runs on the client. Okay. So how do you get started? How can you create a project with it? So we support we provide some basic archetypes. The first one is really a very, very simple application. I think I can show it on here. And it just shows the basic use of the API. And you can rotate some elements in a page and show a dialog or something like that. And this application is created via an archetype that we provide. So you can just, like, if you've got your laptop out, you can just type what's here on the screen, Maven archetype generate, and use the knockout for J archetype. The current version is 0.7. It's on Maven Central, so you can start coding right away. And there's also another, a little bit more elaborate example, that is the CRUD example, where we show how you can connect to a server and get data from there via a REST interface. So we natively support JSON, and we can very easily talk to a REST server and get data from there. And the nice thing is, you can even reuse parts of the Java code on client and server. So you have the same model classes. You can do the validation, basically. Just program it once, and you do not have to do it over and over again. Like if you program in JavaScript, you have two models, one on the client, one on the server, and they need to be somehow synchronized. And that is really a thing of the past for this. So these are the two archetypes, and there are some additional properties that you can set. And with these additional properties, you can define what kind of application you want to create. If you want to run it in a browser, you set the web path. If you want to create a NetBeans module, you set the NetBeans path. And on iOS, the iOS path, Android, the Android path. If you don't do that, you will only get a very basic desktop application. And you don't get these. These are created as submodules in Maven, basically. And in NetBeans, we also support creating a project using a wizard. So it's very comfortable if you want to do that. And I'm going to show you that. Do you need a plugin for that? So I'll start creating a new HTML5 with Java application logic. Then set demo JFocus. Base package is com.Dukescript. And yeah, let's leave it there. And the nice thing is that actually this wizard that is running here is a Dukescript application already. So NetBeans internally uses Dukescript in its wizard API. So we're already interacting with the Dukescript application right here. So now I can decide where I want to run the application. And that's basically it. I'll go for the basic Dukescript template. There seems to be something wrong with my network settings, but it will still work. It will work anyway, because I've got everything locally in my machine. And then I've got my demo JFocus, and I can build it. And actually, when builds are running, it takes a while in the beginning. So what we've created for that purpose is a NetBeans plugin that allows you to also play the Minesweeper game inside of NetBeans. So this is really a productive API now, productive IDE now, because typically, what are you doing when a long Maven build is running? You're switching context. You're going into a browser, do something totally different, and half an hour later, you say, oh, there was that build running. Let's go back. And like here, I immediately see now the build is finished, and I can continue with my project. So I'll start with this project, show you this project first, and run it. Okay, just a sec. I need to change the setting here. So now this is running in the JavaFX web view. And just let me give it a little more space, because you can very nicely debug this application. You can debug the UI, you can debug the code inside NetBeans. So that's why I would suggest you use NetBeans for this. So for example, here I have these elements in the page, and what I can do is I can select them here in the DOM, and they get highlighted, and I can inspect the values. Like for example, here I can inspect the CSS, and I can find out, for example, where the background color is coming from or something like that. So on body there's nothing. So here we get some properties, and they are set in here, and I can immediately jump to the source code, change it, say like input width is only 10%, and actually this will update, live update the page. Sometimes you need to resize it a bit so it takes effect, but in general it works. It really works live. So you can live debug your UI, and you can see the elements, and you can change everything and change the UI, change the style and everything. So so this visual debugging is really very nicely integrated into NetBeans. So now I would like to show you something about our APIs, about the style of programming. When I first met JavaFX and first saw the JavaFX APIs, what I really liked was the bindings and the fXML. So in JavaFX, you can declaratively create your view with an XML format, and you can then bind elements of the view to a controller, and that was really nice. I really liked that. But I found out that there's even a better model where everything is declarative. So you declare the view, in our case, in HTML, and in the HTML you define that the properties of which properties of your data model you want to bind to. And the benefit of that is that your controller code is totally free of UI dependencies. You only have properties in there. And that is really good because it makes everything testable, very easily testable. And it doesn't require you to set up a whole system and put everything on the right application thread to do unit tests or so. It's really very, very simple. So it simplifies. It's actually this is called ModelViewViewModel. And the guys of you who did Windows Presentation Foundations will probably know that model, or the guys of you who are doing Angular. Who is doing Angular? That's basically the same model, the data binding part of Angular. So we are using something else. We are using Knockout. Is anyone using Knockout? Okay. So, and we created basically a Java version of Knockout. Because we want to enable a really clean separation between design and development. So the designer should really work with his tools. The designers know the Adobe toolsuite, and they're really good at that. So they design everything nicely, and we can use what they create. We can use an HTML page they create. We can use the CSS that they create. And we can immediately use that without any changes in our application. We can use all the assets without needing to transform them or export them in any special way. So then the developer will just add some directives, some bindings, and everything is set up and everything is fine. So that's the basic idea. So this is how the most important files in an application look like. So we've got on the one page, on the one side we've got the HTML, on the other side we've got the Java class, and the Java class is created. We wanted to have APIs that are really, really easy to use and really, really require not much boilerplate code. So what you can see here is we have a Java class, person model. And this model, this is annotated with this model annotation here. And what this model annotation does is it generates a class in the background as part of the compilation. So it creates a class that is named data, in our case, which has a property named rotating of type Boolean. So in the back, we get a class generated that knows how to interact with the index HTML page, and that has these properties, and it will have getters and setters, and we can just use it right away. That works in any IDE because this is standard Java annotation processor usage. And on the other side, we have, on this side, we have the HTML page, and on the HTML page, we have just regular button definition, and in this button definition, you can see here this data bind directive, and this is knockout. This is just a simple knockout code. It's supported in lots of IDEs, so you get code completion and everything for that. And right here, we bind the enabled state of the button to the rotating property that we have defined here in the model. So as soon as I say model set rotating true, this will be disabled because there's a not. And also what we have here is we have this click binding, and that is basically the way from the HTML page into the Java code. So on click, we will call this method turn animation on. And here you can see the method definition. It is defined also, again, with an annotation. And this is the code that is going to be called model set rotating true. That means, yeah?
How does it know that this should be bound to index.html? You might have multiple pages in your app.
Yes. You do that via, so typically you bind one page to one model, and you can even bind to specific parts of your page. So you can have different models that bind to different parts of your page. And there's the binding is set up, I'll show you that in a minute, via class models. And you have to call apply bindings, and this will bind the model to a certain part of your HTML page. Okay, so here's a bit more elaborate example. And you can see here the model class is defined just as before with some properties. One of these properties, the address, is an array of array type, so it will create a list basically for us. And it will create a list of addresses, so you can also nest models because address is also defined in the same way. So this is how you do nested models, and they can get quite complex. And you use it like this in Java. This is basically the generated class person. You say new person. Is there anyone from Czech Republic here? Because they know who this guy is. Okay, it's some mythical person there. Okay, so you say new person, and you have this constructor that is also automatically generated for you, and you can give it a name. You can give it you can add this list here, and that's basically it. So it's very simple to create objects. And it's very neatly integrated with JSON because we want to be able to talk to REST servers very easily. So if you call toString on this class, it will produce this JSON string for you. So that's really nice because it also gives you a very easy way to serialize your data and serialize it in a way that it can easily be used also by other frameworks. And this is the code that you were asking for, basically. This is what you need to do to bind it to a place in the page. So in our case, we bind our person to an element in the page that is identified by the string person. So here we have a div that has the ID person, so this is what it is bound to. And now I can do the bindings here. For example, here I have this span, and I bind the text to the full name. Very easy. And I can also iterate over the list. So I say for each addresses is this list of addresses. And then inside of this div, I can access the properties of these individual addresses. So it's a really nice, simple way of programming. And you can also debug that. So I should probably show you debugging and unit testing at once, because we also create unit tests that allow you to test the JavaScript part, that allow you to test the Java part. Because under the hood there is some JavaScript, and it's important that this part doesn't stay a black box for you. So if there are bugs and it's a black box, then you're lost, basically. And so that's why we enable you to also debug that. And for example, here we have a test, and it doesn't matter what it does in detail. Can you read the code on the screen, or should I increase the font size? Increase? Increase. Okay. So we have this test here, just a regular unit test, and I can debug this test. I've set a breakpoint here inside of a Java runnable, and this Java runnable is basically called when we have this when we execute this code here. So here I can test the file, and I can also, so the test finished successfully, and I can also debug the test file. So it will stop on this breakpoint, and I can just do regular debugging of the application. And in our case, there is some JavaScript code involved, because sometimes you need to go native, basically, and add some JavaScript functions. And you can also debug that. At least I think so. Okay. Am I on the correct? Let me try that again. Well, actually, the demo gods seem to be against me at that point. I'm sorry, I'll try to fix that later. So otherwise I will be running out of time. But in general, you can also debug your JavaScript code and set breakpoints in there. But I've got so much to show that I should rather continue. So I said parsing JSON is really easy, and parsing JSON is basically as simple as defining a model in your like the model that I just created using these annotations. So, for example, if you want to talk to a REST service, like, for example, GitHub has REST services, you can just like use this GitHub URL and retrieve some information. And you can see here in the browser what information is coming back from there. And then you can decide, I'm interested in a couple of these properties, and you can define them in your model and basically deserialize the message, and only the parts that you're really interested in will be deserialized, and you can use them as Java objects, which is really comfortable. So, like for example, we had these repos, these repositories in here, and this repository has the element has a list of repositories, and these repositories have and the repository has a name and a URL, and so basically, with this code, I've written a parser for the GitHub REST interface. Now I can create an endpoint. There's also an annotation for that. And if I connect to this REST service, this endpoint will be called, and I will get the information. And I will be able to use it and add these deserialized repositories in there. So what I need is a connect method that will load our data. And to put this all together, I create a new model object, I create a URL, and set it on the model, do an apply bindings, and connect. And then we can immediately read the data. And I've prepared a little demo for you. You've got a GitHub repo, right? So let's see what's in your GitHub repo. Let me see. Here's the example. So what is your, is it RoboVM?
Then you probably need to change users, I guess. It's an organization. VM is an organization.
Okay. Do you know the URL for this, or is it anyone else who has a GitHub repo as a single user?
CyberSac.
Cyber? AC?
Yeah, CAC.
CAC, like this? Okay. So I created new repos, this string here. Let's see if we've got the URL right. Here in the page, I just do also again a data bind for each repos, and I'll print the name. Oh, that's a lot of repositories. akka training. Oh, interesting. So you can see it's really easy to talk to REST interfaces with this, and this is what we want to supply to users. We also have maps component, and this is one of the APIs, just as a demo how to create APIs if you want to, for example, have a map component in your application. And I'm going to show you that. So here that's on GitHub. We have an API there that you can use, and you can also inspect it. It's open source, so you can see how to create your own APIs with that. And we've created a little demo application, and when I run it, you can see a map here that you can navigate, and you click the map at geolocation so-and-so, so you can really interact with it. And the nice thing about this is I wanted to have this component also for some of my JavaFX projects. So I wanted to be able to embed this. And in JavaFX, there is no map component. So what I did is I created a little map view that just wraps this and embeds it into JavaFX. And so I have a regular JavaFX application, and inside this JavaFX application I have a list, and I click something on the list and I interact with the map component that I've created here. So here, this is a regular JavaFX list, and this is where my office is in Munich. Very nice part of town. And here, this is around the place, probably where somewhere near here. I think we're here actually, over here. But this is what Google told me is the Radisson SAS waterfront. And you can really interact with that, and you have a Java API very easily for something that is otherwise only available in JavaScript. We also have a Canvas API, and the Canvas API is for those of you who write games or something like that, because they need a different way of programming. If you just bind your view to the model, then you can do forms very easily, something like that, business applications. But if you want to have something more graphically interesting, you want to have an immediate mode rendering canvas. And that's why we created the Canvas API. And you can just like use it very easily. You create a canvas. And yeah, for the Swing users probably know this kind of coding. You code to this canvas and draw something on there. And to show you what you can do with it, we also did implementation of the JavaFX scene graph on top of this Canvas API, and probably takes a while to load here via the network. But this is now running JavaFX inside a browser using the Canvas API. And the performance you get is quite decent. So given that this is not a really full-blown virtual machine that we have here, so the performance that you get out on these machines, where you really have native performance, is even much better than what you get here. But you can see you can create some really nice stuff with it. And I also created a games library for that. And it will be available on the Dukescript GitHub account soon. So if you're into games, then this is a really nice thing. I also wrote some blog entries about how to create typical games. So if you're into that business, and I know some of the guys here in Stockholm are in that business, this might be really interesting because you can write games that are platform independent and run on all the devices with one single code base very easily. But also for the guys who are more business-oriented, we have something, and that is one of our commercial partners, and that's ControlsJS. And they go even one step further. We say we eliminated the need to write JavaScript. And they say we also eliminate the need to code HTML. So I'll show you a demo of that. So inside NetBeans, I have to find the project. It's a little bit small on this screen now. Okay. Inside NetBeans, I have this normal project, and instead of an HTML page with the bindings, we have this to-do UI ng file. An ng file is basically their view description. They have their own view description that is very easy for them to generate. And what you get is this WYSIWYG editor that is also integrated into NetBeans, where you can just drag and drop stuff on the page and manipulate it. And for example here, what you can do is you can do the data bindings. So you can say, like, for example, here, this add button is enabled if the to-do text property is not empty. And on click, it will call the add to-do method in our Java data model. So you do not have to do anything with HTML or JavaScript. You can just go right away and run this application, and it will, I'll just demo it. It will run on all the platforms. And this ControlsJS has a really nice set of modern modern UI controls. I've put some component here when I demonstrated the drag and drop, and now this hides part of my view. So I should probably do that, remove that again. Somewhere here. Unfortunately, it's a panel, so it's an invisible component. But you can see, like this, you can very, very easily create form-based applications, and you don't have to do any JavaScript or HTML coding. That is really nice if you want to have a quick way of creating applications. And these are completely skinnable. So you can skin your application, create your new CI or something like that, and then you have your application in your specific look and feel of your company. Okay, so who is behind Dukescript? That might also be interesting. For example, if you're deciding whether you want to use it or not, who supports it, who is behind it. The base technology is developed by Oracle. It's a NetBeans sub-project. So these are the basic APIs are open source and maintained by them. And Appleton IT Consulting, which is the company I'm working for, is creating the presenters, so the support for iOS and for Android and iOS. And there are some additional APIs created by community members, like the leaflet stuff. And we also have ControlsJS, which is a commercial partner, and they sell these components commercially to their customers. So these are basically the members of this effort, of the core members of this Dukescript community. So now I hope I already gave you some reasons why you should use it. But it really depends on what you want to do. So what I really like as from an architectural view is that it really enables true ModelViewViewModel, which makes your code really nice, really clean, separation of concerns, and it's really very, very easily testable and maintainable. It enables a true designer-developer workflow, so web designers' work can be used directly. You have no cost of converting this into a format that is understood by your UI toolkit, but you can use it just right away. And when the UI designer can create it as a design, you will be able to use it. And you won't have to argue with him that this feature is not supported by your UI toolkit. You can write cross-platform apps that run on iOS, Android, on desktop, and in any modern browser. You can get rid of your JavaScript code, which is what our customers mainly are looking into, because they have run into problems with their JavaScript code because it's not really very easy to maintain. You can use the existing Java knowledge of your developers, which this is nice for you because this is a Java conference, right? And you don't have to deal with an ugly language. You can write all business code in one language, which is also very nice because you can share the code between the client and the server. You have the same models on the client and the server. It's type safe. That means more errors than you can catch in JavaScript are caught really during compile time. That means you need less testing because your compiler will tell you and you won't have the runtime exceptions. It's Java. Java has the best tooling, the best IDEs. There's no other language that has comparable tooling, which leads to faster development and less code and less cost of ownership for your code. So there's also a project where you can try out Dukescript in the browser. Actually, it's a little bit like JS Fiddle. So you can start some demo applications, create your own demo applications using Gist if you want to learn that. And here are some additional resources, but now I would say, I think I've got 1 or 2 minutes left for questions. So if you have questions, yeah?
How can we run this one in the iOS or this Android emulator? Can we run this?
Yeah, sure.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, how can you run that in the iOS emulator? And this is quite easy because Niklas did a really good job supporting Java via the RoboVM, so we just reuse his work basically here. And let me see. Here I have an iOS project. You just say run in iPad simulator and well, maybe it will take a while until it comes up now, but you can run it in iPad simulator, iPhone simulator.
How can you check that whether it will gonna support the all the iOS or Android versions? Is it gonna be compatible with all the versions or?
That is. So will it be compatible with all the iOS versions? Well, basically, this is probably a question that I don't know which versions are supported. It depends on RoboVM mainly. So what version do you support, Niklas?
It should work on iOS 6 and up.
Yeah.
Just use the web view, so
Yeah.
unless you use anything iOS specific.
That's mainly it, what we're using. So iOS 6 and up, probably. Okay, there was another question here.
So can you comment a bit about RoboView performance, especially in comparison to JP Objective-C compiler?
Actually, the question is, how is RoboVM performance compared to Objective-C compiler? Well, okay, I don't have, I cannot comment on that one. Probably Niklas can tell you more about the performance comparisons if he had done some. We'll probably ask him afterwards. Yeah.
How would you combine this with some kind of MVC framework with the Java side?
You mean, how can I combine it with a MVC framework? Well, we have a view model, which is, this is MVC basically. Okay, I think we're done. Oh, well, actually we have 2 minutes. One more minute, okay. So actually this is MVC, what we have here. This is a submodel, it's model view, one of the submodels that were defined for MVC. One of the more modern ones, because MVC basically nobody uses it anymore. The unchanged version. Okay.
What about the native features? Can we use the camera or some native iOS?
That's a very good question. What about the native features? Can we use the camera and stuff like that? Yes, we can, because RoboVM and Android allow us to do that. But to make it really easy, we would need to define an API that is cross-platform, that basically creates a layer that you don't have to really code natively to these things. But for camera, we don't have one. For geolocation, we have one. For camera, we are going to create one very soon, because that is a popular demand. Okay, if you've got more questions, then we can solve them afterwards. Thank you.